have a super beautiful girlfriend, Evelyn, who not only has an angelic face, but also a hot body. For this I have been envied by many friends, saying that I am such an orphan. I don't know which life I saved the galaxy to cultivate such a blessing. Evelyn's hometown is on an island. She said there is only one boat to and from every day. We boarded a small boat, converted from a fishing boat, at a nearly abandoned pier in the west of the city. With the rumbling of the motor, the boat finally set sail, and the scenery on the shore began to become more and more distant. I remembered Evelyn's phone call last night and asked her who she was calling. She was surprised then, smiled and said to me, "Who else could it be?" "My parents, of course." "It's your first time visiting. Shouldn't they take good care of you?" I was a little muttered in my heart, preparing to prepare, but also meticulous, making it seem like I was a sheep in the mouth of a tiger. But she rubbed against me coquettishly, and I didn't take it to heart. To be honest, I was quite nervous to meet her parents for the first time. After chatting for a while, we began to close our eyes and rest. At this time I heard someone calling my name, opened my eyes, and saw that it was a strange man sitting next to me on the boat. Next to him sat a girl who was no less beautiful than Evelyn. "Ethan, don't you remember me?" "It's Lucas." The name sounded familiar, and upon closer inspection, I gradually remembered that he was actually my classmate from the orphanage. I hadn't seen him for more than 10 years, and now he seemed to be doing well. I was immediately excited, pulled him to chat for a long time, and then ran out of the cabin to smoke a cigarette together. He said that the one next to him was his girlfriend Nina, whose hometown was also on the island. This was the first time he had come to visit. I was a little surprised. It was really a coincidence, and this small island, still specializing in beautiful women. The two exchanged phone calls and agreed to go shopping together on the island when they were free, and then returned to the cabin. The boat sailed on the sea for more than 2 hours, and when I woke up with my eyes squinted, the captain told us that we were about to dock. There were also 2 college-aged youths on board with us. When we disembarked, the 2 youths asked the captain where there were homestays on the island. They wanted to book online first, but there was no homestay information about this island online. The captain laughed and said where there were homestays here. The 2 were still dazed when Lucas' girlfriend suddenly interjected that her relatives had 2 vacant rooms, which happened to be available for them to live in. The college students thanked him profusely and quickly became acquainted with us. They were both graduating this year, the tall one named Edward, and the shorter one named Michael. Before leaving, the 2 girls went to the bathroom, and the 4 of us men lit cigarettes outside. At this time, Michael suddenly asked us mysteriously, "Are you here to find mermaids too?" Mermaid. Lucas and I shook our heads like rattles, both saying they had never heard of it. The 2 boys looked at each other, smiled, and said nothing more. When Evelyn came out, I joked with her, "You even have mermaids here. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" She laughed and said she didn't know, maybe it was just a lie to attract tourists. But just out at the ferry, I saw that it didn't look like it was deceiving tourists at all, and there was no one in sight. There is only one gravel road from the ferry to the village, and there is nothing on either side. Only a short distance in front of the road stands a somewhat dated wooden sign with 3 words written on it, Harbor Village. Not far behind the wooden sign, you can see a mountain. At the foot of the mountain, along both sides of the road, there are several old houses. It seems that there are not many residents in the village, just like the dying natural villages around the city. I asked Evelyn which one was her home. She pointed to a relatively large house at the back and told me that it was there. After walking for a while, Lucas' girlfriend took them into a small courtyard at the corner of the intersection, and Lucas waved goodbye to us. At this time, I remembered Lucas and told Evelyn about it and asked her if she knew the girl named Nina. Unexpectedly, Evelyn was very cold. This time just coldly said she didn't know. I was a little puzzled, thinking that maybe the two families had some festivals. This kind of thing is common in small places, so I didn't ask any more questions. After entering the village, I felt a little strange. The whole village was so clean that it seemed like no one lived there, and even the cats and dogs, common in the countryside, were not visible. Evelyn told me that there were not many people in the village, and now they all went to the beach to work, and would not come back until sunset. I am not familiar with the life of fishing villages, and I didn't think much about it, so I went home with her. Her house is a 2-story building similar to the layout of ordinary rural areas. The courtyard is a living room in the center. The right side is the kitchen and bathroom, and the left side has 2 rooms. Her parents usually live in one of them. There was no one at home, and I couldn't wait to put down my things. She pushed me away coquettishly, telling me not to be in a hurry, and to meet her parents in the evening. I gritted my teeth and went back to the yard to smoke. After the two rested for a while, I originally offered to go for a walk by the sea, but Evelyn told me that there were few people on the island, and some places were not safe, so she told me not to run around. I thought about it. I was, indeed, a little rushed today. In order to ensure a better state in the evening, I didn't insist anymore. I opened my phone and watched a downloaded movie. Before I knew it, the sun had set, and it didn't take long for footsteps to be heard outside the yard. At this time, I finally met Evelyn's parents, and I have to sigh that the water and soil on this island are full of people. Evelyn's mother is also a standard beauty who looks only in her 30s and is radiant. Dressed up in the city, some people would believe that her father looks a little older, in his 50s, but he's also hale and hearty. The most amazing thing is that both of them are very fair, and they don't look like they are doing fishing on the beach. I exerted all my business flattery skills in my life. I handed things over and praised them for being young, which made them smile and said that Evelyn had a good eye and asked her to take good care of me in the future. When I was eating at night, I formally proposed to her parents, introduced myself solemnly, and vowed that I would make Evelyn happy in the future. Her parents kept nodding their heads. The old people in the countryside didn't talk much. They just kept persuading me to drink. It was my first time there, so of course I couldn't refuse their kindness. In the end, I didn't even know what time I drank until Evelyn helped me into the room in the days and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I was woken up by Yara. The room was dark. I reached out and touched it. Evelyn was not by my side. I got up with a bang, walked out of the house, and there was a starry sky outside. It was quiet everywhere. Only the room on the second floor seemed to be still lit. I thought to myself, it was probably the first day back, and the mother and daughter had something to say, so I didn't bother them and went out of the yard to find a place to pee. At this time, I suddenly heard what seemed to be a voice talking in the distance, and 2 figures flashed past. My heart was alert, and the man's voice sounded like the college student from the daytime. Michael. The one next to him seemed to be a woman. What are they doing out so late? Could it be that they really found the mermaid they were talking about? I didn't want to meddle in my own business, but then his exclamation reached my ears. He called the woman next to him, and it turned out to be Nina. Holy crap, there's a big melon. I seemed to smell the green grassland. I woke up all of a sudden, and quickly followed. I saw them being intimate, from a distance seeming to be holding hands and whispering to each other, with their voices suppressed. They ran to a deserted place in the dead of night, If there was no problem, it would be hell. They walked up the mountain road, and I kept an eye on the road under my feet, following silently. When we were approaching the top of the mountain, they stopped by a large rock. I heard the rustling sound followed by a somewhat wretched laughter. The moon was bright tonight. I looked up and saw that they were going to do business here. My heart was beating drums. It was neither to speak out at this time, nor to speak out a little sorry to Lucas. After thinking about it, after all, it was their territory, and I was still careful, so I took out my mobile phone and planned to take a photo for Lucas as an explanation. After all, I encountered this kind of thing, and in the end, it didn't matter. I deliberately turned off the flash and reached out a hand from behind the branch, but I didn't expect it to be careless. In the middle of the night, with a click, it startled all three of them like a thunderbolt. Who? Michael's roar came from over there, and I ran down the mountain desperately. Fortunately, I usually practice running, and they have to make some adjustments first. When I ran back to the yard, in one breath, and looked back, I didn't see anyone coming down the mountain. I got into the room, didn't even dare to turn on the light. My heart was pounding, thinking about whether to send the photo to Lucas now. But if I send it like this, won't they know it's me who did it? What if tomorrow morning, Nina finds a few people to surround me, and I can't even run away? After thinking about it, I decided to go to Lucas tomorrow and talk to him face to face. At least there will be someone to take care of him. Early the next morning, I didn't fall asleep because I had something on my mind, and it didn't take long before dawn, so I went to the yard to smoke alone. As soon as a cigarette was lit, I saw Evelyn and her mother hurriedly come down from the upstairs, dressed in neat clothes. Evelyn was still on the phone, seeming displeased, and she didn't know what to say to someone. When they saw me, everyone was taken aback. I was a little puzzled too. Evelyn usually likes to sleep late, and I have never seen her get up so early. Her mother quickly changed her face and asked me with concern why I got up so early. Did I not sleep well? I laughed dryly and said that I slept well. The air on the island is good, so I got up early to breathe the fresh air. At this time, Evelyn was obviously a little anxious, urged her mother, and told me that there was something wrong with the fishing ground, and they had to go there first, so I could get something to eat by myself. I couldn't ask for it, so I naturally agreed, and let her go with confidence without worrying about me. Not long after they left, I saw people coming out of the village one after another, and heading in their direction. They were all strangers I had never met, and there were quite a few young people, and it seemed that they were all walking in a hurry. I don't know what's going on. See that almost everyone had left. I ate something casually and strolled to Lucas' place to give him a call. He came out in less than 2 minutes, and we each took a cigarette. Seeing his beaming appearance, I felt embarrassed to tell him directly, so I chatted with him first. He said it was his first time meeting his parents last night, and he drank too much. At this time, I asked him if his girlfriend was there, and he said that she went out early in the morning. I stammered and asked, "Are you sure she's been there all night?" His face darkened. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath of my cigarette. "Brother, tell you something. Don't get excited." I told him what happened last night, and finally showed him the photos. Although the night scene photos were not very clear, he recognized at a glance that the woman inside was his girlfriend, Nina. Lucas immediately jumped into a rage and angrily took out his cell phone to call his girlfriend, but I stopped him. "Brother, just think about it. You're not married yet. You're not at a disadvantage. Just take it as a lesson. But I think you should not mention this on the island for the time being. It's not that I'm careful. Think about it. They are all locals. You are a foreigner here. You can't call the sky. It is better to be careful. He was still angrily refusing to give up, but I finally persuaded him to put down the phone. After muttering there for a long time, he became angry and thought about going back today. Anyway, it was still early, and there should be a boat. I thought, this is not possible if he leaves. I will be left alone in case they find out later that I tipped off the news. I will not even have anyone to take care of. So I told him to bear with it for a while, and don't mention Nina's matter for the time being. Michael can't let Michael go. It's better to wait for them to go back to the city together, and I'll help him get him. I said that my girlfriend doesn't seem to have a good relationship with Nina. He might as well stay with me tonight, and said that our brothers drank too much. Let's go back the day after, tomorrow. He thought about it and agreed, but now he couldn't just watch Michael have fun. He wanted to find him bad luck. I agreed. The two of us aggressively went to the two college studios, just as Edward had finished washing up and was sitting at the door eating breakfast. He greeted us, but seemed a little preoccupied. Lucas ignored him and wanted to break into the house. Where's Michael? Edward hurriedly stopped him, but he stammered for a long time, without saying why. I saw that Edward's face didn't seem very good, and felt that something was wrong. Michael, he wouldn't have come back all night last night, would he? Edward raised his head sharply. How do you know? Michael, his mother's messed up things are afraid that people will know. Lucas shouted angrily. Edward's face was pale, and he looked at Lucas with some fear. I pulled Lucas and asked, are you sure Nina came back last night? Lucas was a little dazed by my question, and suppressed his anger. Come back. I woke up to pee almost dawn, and saw her. That's strange. She's back, but Michael hasn't come back. Besides, you don't have to spend the night on this kind of thing, right? As soon as I said that, the three of them fell silent instantly, and anyone could tell that something was wrong. I asked Edward to honestly tell what happened last night. He hesitated for a long time, and finally told the truth. It turned out that when the two of them were about to fall asleep at night, Michael suddenly received a call, and excitedly told Edward that he was going to have a peach blossom look, and then went out. Edward secretly saw from the window that after Michael went out, he turned to Nina's house, and never came back. He also called Michael in the morning, but no one answered after several calls. He felt that something was wrong, so we came. After listening to what he said, I patted Lucas, who was glaring at Edward. It seems that we have to go up the mountain and find someone first. During the day, the back mountain looks quite tall, just blocking half of the island firmly. I took them to the last place. I followed last night from my memory, and I could see the big rock last night. But we searched around, but couldn't find Michael. The strangest thing is, let alone people, there are no traces on the road. There should be no one on this mountain. It is also a green grassy area beside the stone. It stands to reason that someone came last night and would leave some footprints and mud marks, but now I can't see anything. Lucas asked me, you can't remember wrong, can you? I said how could it be, and took out my mobile phone to show him the photo, and I could vaguely see that this was the place. But just as we were at a loss for the photo, Edward, who was sticking his head out behind, suddenly pointed at the corner of the photo and asked me, what is this? Lucas and I both focused on the person before, but now that Edward pointed it out, we suddenly discovered that in the corner of the photo, that is not far behind the big rock, there seemed to be another light on. My hair stood on end instantly, which means that at that time there were people behind us on this mountain, except the three of us. So what happened here last night? I looked at Lucas a little guilty, and Edward obviously started to get scared. It was Lucas, who might have been holding back his anger, raised his head. Let's go inside and have a look. What are you afraid of in broad daylight? The three of us continued to walk forward, and there was a small forest inside. After walking for a short distance, Edward, who had sharp eyes, suddenly shouted, and then picked up a black object on the ground. Lucas and I leaned over and found that what he was holding in his hand was a mask. This mask belongs to Michael. I bought it with him. This kind of pattern is only available in our school. His hand holding the mask trembled a little. His voice trembled, and there was already a hint of crying. It doesn't mean anything. Don't think too much at most. It means Michael has been here. At this time, Lucas comforted him instead, but obviously Michael came here again, which is already a problem. I kept looking down at his mask, and then at where he picked it up. No, look at this place there. Seems to be traces of being run over by wheels. They all looked at the ground, and sure enough, they found 2 wheel prints on the ground, which were similar to the prints of the hand-pulled carts that used to pull goods in the countryside. Edward's crying face suddenly became more frightened. Now I tell them that I don't want to scare him, but to remind them that the development of the situation may be beyond our imagination, and they should be vigilant. 2 long marks were pressed on the edge of the tree roots, and if Edward hadn't found the mask, we wouldn't have noticed. We confirmed again and again that we didn't see this kind of car print on the way here, which means that the car came from the mountain and maybe pulled something here and went back. Now that we found the clue, we followed the wheel prints all the way forward, but not long after, when we walked out of the woods, we were faced with a cliff. Opposite the cliff is a towering rock face. Looking at the bottom of the mountain, these 2 pieces seem to be connected together, but now I see that they are like being cut open, and there is a 2 or 3 meter wide chasm in the middle, which is straight down, at least 100 meters deep. Very scary. The cliff is full of slippery slabs, and the slabs extend forward for 10 meters, which is directly connected to the woods where we are. What the hell? The 3 of us looked around for a long time, but couldn't find any other way out. Where did that hand-pulled car go? Where did Michael go? I ran to the edge of the cliff and carefully probed down, but there was nothing but rubble and weeds. I breathed a sigh of relief, at least not falling, but they fly with their wings. When I came back, I suddenly felt something under my feet. When I bent down, I found that it was a mobile phone. The color of the phone case was similar to that of a stone. No wonder I didn't see it just now. I hurriedly took it to Edward to see if it was Michael's phone. As soon as he saw the phone, his eyes turned red. Did he fall? I said, don't think about it. There is nothing underneath. He felt better. I urged him to open it and have a look. Maybe there are some clues in it. Edward entered the password, and as soon as he turned on the phone, his face changed. When Lucas and I saw this, we leaned in. The phone was still on the message page. The recipient was Edward, and there were only 2 words that had not been sent wrong. Something happened. Luke stared at the phone blankly. Now that something happened to Michael, there must be something wrong with Nina. If something happened to Nina, would he be the next? Edward was shocked and terrified. He was stupid. He didn't know what to do. At this time, I was the only one who remained awake, but I always felt that this matter was related to all of us. Besides, if it was just Michael's own business, what would he ask Edward to run for? I forcibly suppressed the uneasiness in my heart, scattered a cigarette, and let them count down. Then I asked Edward, what are you doing on the island? And the mermaid you mentioned yesterday, what's going on? He took a few deep breaths of cigarettes, and then hesitantly told the truth. It turns out that they are not just here for tourism. but for fun. I heard that there is a mermaid village here. It is said that the mermaid village is full of descendants of mermaids. The women here are extremely beautiful and passionate. Men sneak into the island and can do whatever they want. Michael and I listened, although we thought it was a bit nonsense, but we couldn't resist looking for some excitement, so we came. We thought that even if the legend was false, there might be some fun places on the island. Michael went out last night. I thought he found a place at first, but I didn't expect. I got angry when I heard it. Damn it. You are not learning well at a young age. You believe this kind of thing. You have read the book for nothing, and now you have put yourself in. Edward lowered his head, not daring to speak. But after scolding and scolding, I always felt that something was wrong. If I was really deceived, how could this happen now? So I asked him again, "Where did you hear about it?" Edward said that he heard it in an underground forum on the internet, and it was described vividly. Even the route was told to them, and photos of the island were sent to them. It looked like this island. As if to prove himself, he took out his mobile phone to show me, saying that he had saved a few screenshots. I leaned over to take a look, and I was shocked. It's not that his pictures are exaggerated, but the other party said mermaid princess, which is Evelyn's screen name. At this point it would be unbelievable to tell me it was all a coincidence. From the screen name to the avatar, even the tone of voice, it's all exactly the same as Evelyn. I'm pretty sure the one who tricked them to the island was Evelyn. At this time, I remembered that when they disembarked, the two of them were looking for a homestay. I saw that Evelyn seemed to be about to say something, but Nina cut her off. No wonder she treated Nina so coldly afterwards. Evelyn lives so close to Nina's house that it's strange to say she doesn't know each other. Even the whole island is probably in the same group. The more I thought about it, the more creepy I felt. I forced myself to calm down and reorganize the current situation. The four of us came to this island for various reasons, and the reasons for coming to the island were all related to us. Girlfriends. But they brought us here. What exactly are they for? And they chose the same time. At the same time, why did they choose a few of us? Did they choose randomly, or were they targeted? Thinking of this, a terrifying thought suddenly flashed through my mind, and I hurriedly asked Edward about his family situation. What about you and Michael? Are there any other people in your family? Edward looked at me blankly, scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly, "There is no one in my family. I am an orphan, and so is Michael. We both grew up in an orphanage." What? I was so startled that I couldn't hold back and shouted. The commonality between the four of us is that we are all orphans and arrived here on the same day. This is incredible. My hand holding the cigarette trembled slightly, and even my back began to feel cold. This means that if we go missing, no one outside will call the police to find us. I felt an intense sense of fear wash over me. Lucas and Edward gasped when they were told about the current situation and the possible dangers, and they were so nervous that they were speechless. In the end, I pretended to be calm and analyzed the situation. The four of us must have been brought to the island on purpose. Although I don't know what they tricked us into doing, I guess 9 out of 10 will not. What a good thing. Michael is only the first, and I am afraid it's our turn next. I paused and continued with my thoughts. This morning I saw that the whole village is gone. It is very likely that it has something to do with Michael. I guess what happened last night was not in their plan, so I went in a hurry this morning. Solve. The two of them, Solomon Edward, was so pale that he didn't even dare to let out the air. Lucas had long since lost his previous momentum, and after holding it for a long time, he asked me, "What should we do now?" "Call the police." Report, call the police. We'll go out immediately and leave this island as soon as possible. Lucas hurriedly took out his phone, but suddenly stopped then. The phone has no signal. The two of us also hurriedly took our mobile phones and looked at it. It was strange that we could get through the phone in the morning, but now there is no signal. I don't know what's going on, but I probably understand that the signal on this kind of island relies on a base station to transmit. If the base station is turned off, the mobile phone will become a decoration here. Go hurry up. Go to the dock. We must catch the boat going out today. The dangerous feeling became stronger and stronger. I don't know if they found something, or just in case they wanted to trap us here first. I only know that we are fish in the fishing net, and now that net has begun to close. Getting tighter, getting tighter. The three of them ran to the pier in one breath, and I swear I've never run so fast in my life. I looked anxiously towards the shore, and luckily the boat was still there. The three of us jumped on the boat, and the captain was still dozing off. Seeing us boarding the boat, he joked to us, "I just came yesterday, and I left today. Don't you want to play for a few more days?" I didn't have time to talk nonsense with him, so I pretended to be calm and gave him a cigarette. "There is something urgent in the city. I have to go back first, or you can sail the boat first. Even if we charter the boat, the money will be paid to you twice." When the captain heard that the boat fare was doubled, he was very happy, and without saying a word, he started the boat directly. Listening to the roar of the motor, watching the boat leave the shore little by little, the three of us finally breathed a sigh of relief. The three of them just lit a cigarette to calm down when the captain came over, holding 3 bottles of water in his hand, and said to us, with a smile, "What's the hurry? Is there a fire in the city waiting for you to put it out?" We laughed awkwardly and said nothing, took the water and drank it in one gulp. He didn't ask any more questions, Hundaditi, and went back. But after less than 2 minutes, I started to feel my eyelids getting heavier and heavier. I looked at the two of them in a daze, and they were already lying on the chairs unconscious. The sound of the motor stopped and footsteps sounded outside the cabin. My last thought was bad. Oops, I didn't expect the captain to be in the same group as them. When I woke up again, I found myself curled up in a dark, cramped space. I tried to move slightly and found that my hands and feet were not tied. Maybe they didn't expect me to wake up so quickly, or they didn't believe we could escape. I touched. It seemed to be an iron cage, the kind that kept animals in a circus. The outside was completely sealed with wooden boards, and the space inside was just enough to fit an adult. The cage was bouncing up and down, as if moving forward, and I immediately thought of the wheel prints I saw on the mountain. I'm afraid it was not a hand-pulled car, but this kind of cage car. Even if I saw it, I would not know what was inside. But luckily, the wooden boards were not nailed very tightly, so I could see the general situation outside, from the gaps in the wooden strips. Now we seemed to be on the road in the back mountain before, and there was a buzzing sound from the side of the cage, which may be a power device installed on the wheel. There were at least 4 or 5 people escorting us. The leader was the captain, and there was a young man with yellow hair beside my car. The situation behind is unclear, but listening to the sound, Lucas and Edward's car should be behind me, as well as the footsteps of others. Although I woke up, the strength of the drug hadn't completely worn off, and my whole body was limp. I leaned against the edge of the cage, but my mind was racing. They had a lot of people, and it was definitely not possible to shout or struggle now. I could only continue to pretend to be in a coma, while regaining my strength, while paying attention to the movement outside. At this time, I heard Onmao outside, complaining, "Brother Ha, why don't you just drive the boat to the other side? It's exhausting to transport these 3 people over the mountain road." The captain replied to him, "There are big clients coming these 2 days, and it's not good to unload the goods there. Who told you that you didn't watch it? If it weren't for me, you guys would almost have run away." Listening to what they meant, the three of us were indeed locked in cages and transported to the top of the mountain, and the destination seemed to be on the other side of the island. I was shocked and anxious, and the answer to the mystery seemed to be revealed. What is on the other side of the island? The cage moved forward at a fast pace, and after a while, it reached the flat ground, which was the previous cliff. The car stopped, and my heart began to hang up, not knowing how they would pass, and whether I had a chance to escape. At this time, the captain took out a walkie-talkie. "Here we are. Bring up the bridge." Ridge. There's a bridge. Before I could think about it, I saw the original stones on the opposite mountain wall, gradually peeling off, just like the drawbridge of the ancient moat. It was lowered and placed on the cliff, which happened to be a bridge to pass. On the opposite mountain wall, after the suspension bridge was lowered, a dark cave was revealed, and there seemed to be someone answering there. I suddenly realized there was a cave on the opposite side, but it was usually camouflaged by a door, so I didn't notice it at the time. But I was even more terrified. After crossing the bridge, I didn't know what I would face, and the chance of escaping was even smaller. Feeling that I have almost recovered my strength, I was considering whether to take this opportunity to break open the cage, but the cage started to move forward again, and with a bang, my cage was loaded onto the suspension bridge. The wind howled into the cage. Thinking that I was above the deep stream at this time, I was too scared to move. Then I heard the sound of bang bang behind me, which should be Lucas and Edward being sent over. A stranger came and took us away, and someone glanced at me in the cage. Seeing that there were so many of them, I had no choice but to hold back my anxiety and pretend to be in a coma. The cage went all the way down after passing a flat ground and got off the mountain after about 7 or 8 minutes. At this time, I finally saw the other side of the island. It was a sight I will never forget. There really is a mermaid village here. After passing through the cave, we seemed to be in another world. It was getting dark, but the lights were on here. In stark contrast to the backward small fishing village before this is obviously a modern world full of feasting and feasting, which is not inferior to the sleepless neighborhoods of big cities. There are scantily clad young girls on the road, tall young men in suits, and ladies with brocade hats and mink fur. There are also many unlicensed luxury cars parked on the side of the road that are only seen in movies. Not far away, there are neon lights flashing, which seems to be the port of this area, and you can vaguely see yachts of all sizes gathered. In the center of this area, there's a magnificent tall building with colorful running lights, and a huge sign embedded on it, which seems to be a casino. All this gave me great shock. I don't know why they hid such a place here. Who built it? Who is here again? And what role will we play? The uneasiness in my heart grew stronger. Those people took the cage car from the block, and a few passers-by glanced at us inadvertently. I was about to call someone, but they walked away as if nothing had happened. The car was taken all the way to a 3-story building behind the casino. Unlike the bustling streets seen before, the building was all white, like a hospital. As soon as I entered the building, the pungent smell of disinfectant hit my face. My heart immediately tensed. This island is clearly a hidden world, or rather a lawless place. So what are you doing here? I don't believe they will be kind to us. Various scenes from the movie flashed through my mind, and I thought of the most terrifying possibility. We were all orphans, and the only thing that was worth the money was our bodies. The cage car was pushed into an empty room. I saw 2 people in white coats nodding to them. Beside the white coats, There were 3 hospital beds. With a squeak, the cage was opened. Lucas and Edward were lifted out one by one and placed on the operating table, their hands and feet secured with leather buckles. It was my turn next, and countless fragments flashed through my mind, imagining all kinds of escape possibilities. But now it seems that there are several of them, and my chances of escaping are 0, so I can only pretend to be in a coma and be carried to the bed by them. After securing us, I heard the people escorting us say a few words to the doctor, and then backed out. We were transported by the doctor to a preparation room further inside. After being sent in, one of the doctors seemed to have something to do, and turned around and walked out. The remaining one didn't do anything to us immediately. I heard him preparing tools. In a corner of the room, quietly opened my eyes and glanced at the surrounding environment. The room was relatively empty, with what appeared to be an operating area on the far right, with a shadowless lamp installed on it, and some medical equipment beside it. There was a large TV screen on the wall directly opposite. I didn't have time to watch the content on it. At the moment, there was only one doctor in the room, and he was facing away from me. This was my best chance to escape. Fortunately, I am always in the habit of wearing a Swiss Army knife on my key. When I was in the cage just now, I had quietly taken off the army knife and hid it in the close to my body. I twisted my arm with all my might, slid the army knife to my wrist, and began to cut the belt on my hand. As soon as the belt on one hand was cut up, the doctor turned and walked over. From the edge of my half-closed eyelids, I saw that he was holding a needle in his hand, flicked it twice, and got closer and closer to me. I became tense all over my muscles, tensed life or death, waiting for that moment. The doctor came to my side, put the needle in the plate beside him, picked up a small flashlight, and opened my eyelids. The moment the light came in, my pupils shrank suddenly, and at the same time, I saw the doctor startled. Just as he was about to shout, I clenched my free hand, holding the army knife, and swiped upwards. The potential of a person to explode when he is fighting for his life is endless. I don't know how deep the knife was cut, but I saw him subconsciously cover his neck. But the blood was still gushing. Before he could make a sound, he was already gone. He fell down crookedly. My heart was beating fast, but I knew now was not the time to breathe. I quickly cut the remaining straps and jumped off the bed. Because I hadn't moved for a long time, my eyes went dark, and I almost fainted when I got out of bed, but I gritted my teeth and persevered, and quickly untied the belts of Lucas and Edward, slapped them both a few times with my left and right bows, found 2 bottles of saline in the room, and poured them directly on their faces, and finally woke them up. They were both terrified. They didn't know where they were, and were about to ask me. I made a silent gesture to them, pointed to the big screen on the wall, which had all the answers they wanted. When they saw the picture on the screen, their faces turned pale instantly, and the most terrifying mystery was finally revealed.